On episode 459 of the 40 Plus Fitness podcast, we discuss how to get strong after 40. You can find the full show notes for this episode at 40plusfitnesspodcast.com/459. Have you decided you're ready to make a change? To reclaim your health and fitness? The 40 Plus Fitness podcast is here for you. I'm your host, Alan Meisner. I'm an NSAM certified personal trainer with a specialization in corrective exercise and fitness nutrition. Let me be your coach as you find your way on your health and fitness journey. All right, let's go. Are you struggling to get results from your exercise and diet? Spinning your wheels? Or maybe you just really don't know where to start, but you want to start. The pandemic has made it clear we can't afford to not do something to improve our health. In fact, a recent study showed that obese people spend over $1,400 more per year on medical care and prescriptions. I'm here to help. I've helped hundreds of people over 40 lose weight and get more fit with 40 Plus Fitness online personal training. And now it's your turn. When you're over 40, you need to train smart and eat smart if you want to shed the weight and get stronger. Through the monthly group coaching call, the monthly one-on-one coaching call, and the 40 Plus Fitness app, I'll guide you step by step so you get results fast and learn how to keep it off. I'm so confident in 40 Plus Fitness online personal training that I offer a 40-day money-back guarantee. You won't find another personal trainer or wellness coach that does that. I take all the risks because I know I can help you. Go to 40plusfitnesspodcast.com/start and get started today. That's 40plusfitnesspodcast.com/start. In honor of Veterans Day, I'm offering a 20% discount on 40 Plus Fitness group training to all veterans with the coupon code VETERAN. This offer will be valid into the end of November. 40plusfitnesspodcast.com/start. Raz, how you doing?
Good. How are you, Alan?
Busy. You know, I'm doing the traveling as we're recording this. I'm traveling a good bit to visit family and friends, and so it's go, and then getting our stuff together and getting it moved out, and realizing how hard it is to let go of some things. You know, we're taking far too much stuff down. But as this episode's going live, probably in North Carolina, and I'll be heading home in about a week or so. So, provide again, I can get a negative COVID test 48 hours before the flight. So there'll be a little bit of push to get everything done and get back on an airplane and get back down there. But looking forward to a good Thanksgiving week that's coming up in about a week or so. So we'll get it done.
That sounds great. Glad you could get up here and make the rounds visiting family and friends and whatnot.
So what are you up to?
Well, we just got a new puppy. So
oh boy.
I am puppy training. Yep. And she's a small black lab, and Mike wanted a puppy for duck hunting, but since she seems to be my shadow, like my other pup, Stella, I suspect she'll be a good running partner in another year or so. So yeah, it's a real treat. She's a real treat.
So she can chase you or she can chase ducks.
Yes, exactly. Either way, we'll both be happy.
Yeah, there you go. All right. So the episode we're going to talk about today is about strength. So let's go ahead and listen. It's not an interview, but we'll listen. Hello, and welcome to another solo episode of the 40 Plus Fitness podcast. Today, we're talking about a topic that is actually my favorite topic, how to get strong after 40. Now, I wrote a blog post about this a few days ago, and I asked some questions on Facebook. So I'm going to use a lot of that material here just as a kind of a base as we have this conversation. But I really did want to take the time to dive in a little bit deeper into some of the topics that I just didn't feel like I got deep enough on the blog post. So go check out that blog post on the website. But, most people who come to wanting to get healthy and fit are typically starting with weight loss as a goal. And, the basic number out there is lose the weight, then gain the muscle. And it sounds good. And in fact, it actually works a little bit because when you focus on one thing, it's obviously easier. But if you're over 40, that's not a good strategy at all. People don't want to lift weights because they're afraid that they're going to get big. They're afraid they're going to stop their weight loss. And the reality of it is the exact opposite. The size of muscle relative to fat is just tremendous. If you've ever seen a picture, a meme on Facebook, you know, the fat is 7, 8 times bigger pound for pound than muscle. So you're not going to get really, really big, and the other side of it is, people look at bodybuilders and think that's what strength training does. And the reality of it is entirely different. Bodybuilders don't train for strength. They train for muscle mass. So they train very differently. They eat very differently, and they're trained a lot more. Strength training doesn't have to be a profession. You can get a lot done in a little bit of time. And the other thing when you're looking at a bodybuilder is to recognize that many of them, even if they're generally natural, are still using some performance enhancing drugs to get to the size that they're at. If they're training a lot harder, and to be able to do that, many of them are using steroids, peptides, and SARMs to get those gains. And so you can't look at a bodybuilder and think that's what you're going to get out of strength training. The other side is most of those folks are putting on that muscle in their 20s and through their 30s. If you're over 40, you're not going to have the capacity to put on that much muscle, but you can get stronger. And another thing, as we're getting into thinking about weight loss, because, if you're coming at this still wanting to lose weight, but you're believing you need to do some strength training, which is great, is yes, your scale might change a little bit when you first get started, because a damaged muscle, which is part of what we're doing when we're doing the work, we're straining or stressing the muscle, that effort on the muscle causes metabolic waste, and that metabolic waste has to be flushed out. So whenever you do injure a part of your body or you lift weights, yes, sometimes water will go into the muscle, but recognize that weight as water weight, and not in any way your actual weight. And then once you're training regularly, you won't even notice that. It's just going to be kind of built into the formula. So don't let weight loss be the reason that you're not doing strength training. It is really hard to get strong after 40, and you're going to have to do some work, and you need to do that. And the reason strength training is so critical, particularly after 40, is this thing called sarcopenia. Now, sarcopenia is an aspect of muscle that over the course of each year, we lose about 1% of our muscle. And after the age of 65, that loss accelerates. So if you're not strength training, you are definitely losing muscle, and you're definitely losing strength. And in fact, many cases, you're probably also losing bone density due to osteopenia. So strength training is going to help you maintain and maybe even gain some muscle. But this is really about strength training. So to get strong after 40, you're going to do some training. If you don't do the training, you're going to get weak and weak and weak. And what that leads to is the potential loss of independence. If you've ever tried to open a jar and struggled to open it, that's a loss of independence. You either had to do without what was in that jar or ask somebody else for help. Now, that's going to reverberate through your entire life as you don't have the strength to accomplish things like getting up from a toilet. You're definitely losing your independence on that one. So strength training is important, and it's so important as we get older, because we want to be able to continue to do the things we're doing, and so few people do, and they lose their independence. And I don't want that to happen to you. Now, if you want to get strong after 40, you got to follow a few protocols. Your body's not going to be as forgiving as it was when you were in your 20s and 30s. You're going to have to be a little bit more careful, and you're going to have to be a little bit smarter. So the very first thing to consider when you're getting ready to do any kind of lifting is to make sure that you warm up first. I remember having an instructor when I was in college. There was, a physiology and exercise class, and he just really didn't believe warm-ups were important. And to prove it to us one day, he's in his 60s. He just started jumping up and down on his chair, from the ground to the chair, back and forth. And then he was breathing heavy after a couple minutes of that. And he said, "See, I'm warm. I didn't have to warm up before I did that." But I advise you to warm up. A cold muscle has much more likelihood of getting pulled or broken. And then the other problem is that your ligaments and tendons don't necessarily get good blood flow. So a good warm up is going to go a long way towards helping you prevent injury and just have better performance when you're lifting. Now, You want to make sure when you're lifting that your body is in a good position to move and do the right things. And that means that you have to have good mobility. For those of us that have had office jobs for much of our lives with a lot of sitting, or if you're driving, you're sitting, if you don't spend a lot of time moving around, you've probably lost some of the mobility. Now, there are a few different ways that you can improve your mobility to include stretching and other things. I want to go briefly through a few things with regard to that. Now, dynamic stretching is the most advisable kind of stretching when you're going to be doing strength training. Dynamic stretching is where you basically move through a range of motion. You start very slow, and then as the muscle warms up, you're able to move a little bit faster and a little bit faster, and you kind of build up some opportunity to work the full range of motion and get that muscle warmed up and going. Okay, that gets good blood flow to the muscle, to the ligaments, to the tendons, and everything's good to go. Now, if you have a movement problem, perfect example, most people have very tight calves. You probably need to do some static stretching for those muscles. Now, static stretching is basically where you put the muscle into a stretched position, so it's at one range of the full range of motion, and you basically put a little bit of pressure on it such that that muscle is forced to lengthen. That lengthening is important because if a muscle can't properly lengthen, it's going to affect the kinetic chain. For every muscle that you move, contracts to move the weight, you have other muscles that are basically required to lengthen to allow you to move through that range of motion. And if some of those muscles are tight, they're going to keep you from completing the movement in a good form. And we're going to talk about that in a minute too. So make sure that you have a good pattern of movement. If anything's inhibiting you from doing that, you want to stretch that muscle. Now, you don't stretch all the muscles because if a muscle is already loose, it doesn't need stretching. Dynamic stretching will be enough because you'll get blood flow to it and it'll be ready to go. You only want to statically stretch the muscles that are inhibiting your movement or keeping you from having a good range of motion, because static stretching will reduce your strength. So if you do static stretching on a muscle that you intend to work, you're going to lose performance. And then, of course, if you're not doing as much weight on an exercise, you're not building as much strength. So if you want to get strong after 40, don't statically stretch the muscles that you want to work. Now, there are a couple different other ways that you can improve your overall mobility if static stretching and dynamic stretching don't quite get you there. One of those is self-myofascial release, or SMR. You may have heard this called rolling or smashing. I don't like the term rolling because I think people do it wrong. The object of self-myofascial release is not to roll something over the muscle. That stimulates the muscle. What you want to do is find those spots on the muscle that are tight and press into them. So smashing is probably a better depiction of what you want to do, is press into that for about 30 to 60 seconds, and then you'll feel the muscle release. This is a natural protective mechanism of a muscle. If it were to get too tight, it doesn't want to break. So it has an automatic release, and you want to kind of make that happen. And self-myofascial release is a way to do that. If you've ever had a joint injury or something that's preventing you from moving, flossing is a way that you might be able to go about releasing that. And so, if you sit a lot, you may have some hip issues where you're not getting your upper leg where it fits into the socket on your pelvis. You might not be getting a full range of motion there, and a full mobility there. And if that's what's holding you up, flossing could be something. But self-myofascial release and flossing are not for everybody. And if you're going to get into it, I would work with a professional coach to make sure that you get good advice and good guidance on how to do that properly, because you can't injure yourself if you're not flossing, particularly not flossing properly. Okay, I said it before generally, but I'm going to reiterate this, and this is very important. One of the most important rules here, and that's always use good form. If you don't know what good form is, find out. Don't just put weight on yourself if you're not able to do the exercise properly. Good form is going to be full range of motion. There's very few exercises when you're training for strength that you're going to do in a partial range. You want to make sure you're doing a full range of motion. And you also want to make sure that you have control of the weight. There's a lot of people like to throw a lot of weight around, and they're not actually building strength. They're building something else. They're building power. I want to switch this a little bit. When we're talking about lifting, we we have three actual movement patterns that a muscle will do while we're lifting. Okay, the first is isometric, and that's basically where the force that we're applying to the weight is equal to the weight, so the weight doesn't move. Okay, so you can think of something in terms of like doing a plank, where once you're holding a position, you're holding your core in a position and it's the gravity's fighting against you, but you're holding it there. So you're applying just as much force as the gravity is in that instance to hold that pose. Okay, that's an isometric movement. A concentric movement is when you're moving a weight against the gravity, or you're moving a resistance against itself. So, an example of that would be when I am curling my arm up. So, if I'm bringing my fist up towards my shoulder, I'm curling. I'm having a concentric contraction in my bicep muscle. If you were doing a push-up, when you're pushing your body away from the floor, your chest and triceps are doing a concentric movement to move you against that gravity. An eccentric movement is when your body is still generally resisting gravity, but you're letting gravity kind of have its way of lowering. So if you were in the top position of a push-up and you slowly lowered yourself to the ground, or if you're in the top position of a bicep curl and you slowly let the weight go back down to the ground. That concentric movement is usually a power movement. That's not exactly where you're building the most strength. It's the eccentric portion of the movement where you're building the most strength. So having control of the weight and not just dropping it after you get it moved up is really, really important if you want to get strong after 40. That's where you're really building the strength, is in that control of the eccentric portion of the movement. Okay, and the final bit is that you should be trying to make sure that you maintain core endurance throughout the lift. Many of the lifts that you'll do will require you to have your core braced. And the only way you can really properly do that is if you do have good core muscle endurance. Now, you build muscle endurance by holding positions for a period of time. And you want to think of your core not just as your rectus abdominis, the muscles in the front, but the whole part of your body, the core of your body. So that's the back, the sides, and the front. You want to think of it like a can. And so if you thought of a can of soda and you want to have a cinder block and put it on top of that can, if the can's full, it can pretty much hold that cinder block, even if the cinder block is a little off whack. If you empty the can of fluid and you put it there, now it's a little bit more cumbersome. You can still set that cinder block on top. You have to be a little bit more careful, and if it's a little bit off, it could crush the can. And if the can has a divot in it anywhere and you try to put a cinder block on there, it's going to crush the can. So if you think of your core in that way, you want to have a good, solid core, and that requires some training of your core. So core work should be a regular part, and it's not just doing a function of hyperextensions and sit-ups and things like that. You want to focus more on maintaining endurance. So the endurance comes from those isometric moves we talked about. So, doing bird dogs and doing planks and, some other types of exercises that you hold a position, that's helping you build that core endurance. And many of the exercises that you're doing, as I said, require that core endurance. So you're building some of that there too. So, but core training should be a part of your strength training to help you maintain good form. This episode of the 40 Plus Fitness Podcast is sponsored by Best Self. I'm sure you've heard me extolling the value of journaling. Beyond the value of expressing gratitude and checking in with yourself, journaling is the best way to get more things done. If improving your health and fitness is important to you, you need the Self Journal by Best Self. This 13-week goal planner, backed by science and success psychology, is designed to optimize your day, tackle your goals, and live a more fulfilled life. The self-journal will help you set, plan, and track progress towards your biggest goals, be more productive, overcome decision fatigue, and focus on what matters most, and prioritize your workload, build good habits, and make every day count. Go to 40plusfitnesspodcast.com/bestself and use the discount code 40plus 40PLUS for 20% off site-wide. And while you're there, check out all the other great products they have. Your discount code 40plus is good for 20% site-wide. 40plusfitnesspodcast.com/best self. Next, I want to shift to talking about nutrition. The first thing that you want to make sure, because every function in our body requires water and electrolytes to function properly, you want to make sure you're properly hydrated. So drinking plenty of water, all day, not just during your workout or not just before your workout, but making sure you stay good and hydrated is going to help your muscles perform better. And when you talk about hydration, again, it's not always just about the water. If you have issues with electrolytes, if you're sweating a lot, or if you're breathing a lot, and even, some dry, cold days can cause you to dehydrate a little bit. So making sure you stay hydrated requires you to make sure you're getting your potassium, magnesium, sodium, and zinc, and it also requires you to make sure that you're getting plenty of POW, plain old water. Don't overfeed. If you came at this to lose weight and now you want to get strong, a lot of people will have the tendency to think they need to overeat. They'll tell you need a calorie surplus to build muscle. And that's not actually completely true. Yes, if you have a calorie surplus, you'll put on more muscle faster for sure. But we're not worried if we're trying to get strong about actually putting on a whole lot more muscle. What we just do is when we want to build muscle to make it stronger. So you don't necessarily want to overfeed, and you can still be at a slight calorie deficit and gain some muscle strength and gain some muscle mass even. To do that, though, you've got to make sure that you are feeding the muscle. So you will, if you're lifting, and particularly if you're lifting heavy and you're lifting often, you're going to want to make sure that you're getting enough protein. And as a general guideline, I typically try to target about a half a gram of protein per pound of body weight. So, me sitting at about 200 pounds, that means I'm going to want about 100 grams of protein every day to make sure that I'm giving my muscles what they need to build. On days that I train heavier, I'll probably eat a little bit more protein. On the days that I'm not training, I may eat a little bit less. But in general, I'm trying to average about 100 grams per day, half a gram per pound. Next, I want to talk about rest and recovery. In between each lift, you need to take a short lift break, short break. These rest breaks in between each set is when your body basically is rebuilding the energy store inside the muscle. It's called APT, and the body can regenerate some APT in a very short period of time so that you're able to do a heavier lift the next time. So if, let's say you're doing 3 sets, first starting out, you might find that a minute is a long enough rest period for you to be able to go back and do the same weight almost as many times as you did the first time. And then maybe the third time, a little bit less than you did the first and second. But you generally want to make sure that you're still lifting in your desired rep range, and staging your rest to allow that to happen is really, really important. So 1 minute works for most people. If you're lifting heavier or you're going a little bit more intense with stuff, you might want to go 2.5 minutes, but you seldom need to go more than 3. And I say that because you don't want to cool down. And if you're just sitting on your phone for 5 minutes, you probably want to do a little bit of warm up again before you get back into it. So, a good 1 to 2.5 minute break in between each lift. Try to be consistent with it so you can at least monitor how the rest is working for you. And then you can, ratchet it up or ratchet it down as you go. But you want to give yourself at least a minute to allow your body to rebuild its energy stores. And then we're going to talk about recovery. Okay, so recovery is the time between workouts. I don't know how many times I've been in the gym and seen, the same person come into the gym, do the same workout every single day. And the thing is, they're not building any strength. They haven't allowed their body to recover. They haven't allowed the muscles to rebuild. The way muscle and strength works is you do the stimulus, which is the lifting. After you do the stimulus, you make sure you've got the food. So we're getting plenty of protein and we're staying hydrated. And then we give our body 48 to 72 hours to rebuild that muscle. The stimulus tells the muscle that it needs to be able to do something. And so its response is going to be to make itself stronger. And that's how this whole thing works. And it works whether you're in your 20s all the way up to your 80s and past. If you want to get strong after 40, you need to lift and you need to rest. And that recovery time is really, really important. A lot of folks, when they first start out, can do a full body. If you think about it in those terms, that just means if you work out on a Monday, you come back in on Thursday, you come back in on Sunday, you come back in on Wednesday. So you're getting 2 to 2.5 workouts per week. And that's plenty of stimulus, particularly in the beginning, to give your muscles what it needs to know that it needs to grow. If you find that you want to do more volume because you're getting conditioned, you can do more volume, but you're probably going to have to break up your workouts in what we call splits. And we'll talk a little bit more about exercise selection and things like that and later on. But just to kind of give you an idea of how a structure would work, you need to make sure you're giving your body at least 48 hours to recover and pay attention to it, because some people do recover a little faster. Some muscles recover a little slower. My upper body recovers much faster than my lower body, so it can take on more volume than my lower body can. But sometimes I need the whole 72 hours for my lower body, and I take that into account based on how hard I'm training. Okay, the next thing I want to talk about is consistency. You can't lift once a month and get strong after 40. That just doesn't work that way. Consistency takes 3 things. It takes patience. As you go to the gym each day, you're going to have days that are great, and you're going to have days that are actually not so great. This can be because of a myriad of things. Your immune system might be dealing with a virus. You might just be a little bit lower energy that day for one reason or another, because your thyroid, because you didn't sleep well. A lot of different things could be going on. You may not have fully recovered, and so your workouts aren't quite as good. So you're going to have this thing happening where it's not necessarily a linear thing. If you have the persistence, which is the second P here, you keep showing up and you keep doing it. And what happens over time is you do see a trend to get stronger. And at first, it's actually pretty cool because your brain is learning the exercises. It's learning how to fire more and more muscle fibers to make that movement happen. So a lot of people early on see really good strength improvement. And then that kind of seems to plateau. So you have to have the patience and then the persistence to keep pushing on. And that's where the other one comes in, the other P, progression. Progression is about getting stronger. It's about putting more on. You want to do that in a smart way. I call it gentle nudges. So you shouldn't ever increase the weight from one workout to the other more than, say, 10%. So, and sometimes that's hard. I know if you're dealing with dumbbells and it's a 15 dumbbell and now you're ready to move to the next weight and the next weight's a 20, I get it. That's a lot more than 10%. And so sometimes you're going to be stuck with what you have. But in a general sense, to get a really good progression in a strength workout, you want to just try to move up no more than 10%. So a couple pounds on an exercise is a progression. And when you can get the full sets in and the reps in and use good form, that's when you want to progress. I've talked about people coming into the gym. They do the same workout every time. They set the weights on the same thing every time. They're not getting any stronger because, one, they're not stimulating their muscles because they're not progressing. They're not adding weight to that workout. And then, of course, they're not recovering, but they didn't do the work to need to recover. So they're coming in and they're doing a workout, which is great. I'm glad you're there. I'm glad you're moving. Movement is important, but you're not getting stronger. And you're not building strength. So that's what we want to do. We don't want to just stay where we are. We want to get a little bit stronger. We want to add a little bit more muscle mass, because if sarcopenia kicks in, it's going to start reducing that muscle mass. And as it does, the more muscle you have than start with, the better you're going to be when you start going against that even heavier. So patience, persistence, and progression lead to consistency. And consistency leads to results. Now, the next thing I want to talk about in this lineup is exercise selection. And this is really, really important because so many people love to come in and do work that makes them feel good. And that's awesome. But again, it's not going to help you really get stronger. If you see a lot of people come into the gym and they just blast their arms with these isolation movements. And that's fine. An isolation exercise is where you're really just working one muscle. And that's fine if you want to have bigger biceps, you want to have bigger triceps. That's great to work those muscles, but it's not really helping you get a lot more strong because they're not muscles that you're going to be doing. What's the heaviest thing that you lift up to your mouth from a low point? And then reality is you're going to find that you're just not using your biceps that much to lift a lot of weight. Now, you are using your back and you are using your chest and you are using your legs. So focusing on compound movements. Now, compound movements are movements that move multiple muscles. So a push-up is requiring you to move your chest and your triceps, so it's working multiple muscles. A squat is requiring you to use your quadriceps and your glutes. And a deadlift is causing you to use your glutes and your back and your hamstrings. So compound movements are going to be your bread and butter for strength exercises. And so as you're doing this exercise selection, a good starting point for most beginners, if you look at most beginner workouts, they're going to involve a squat. They're probably going to involve a lunge or a deadlift. They're going to involve a push-up or a bench press, and they're going to involve a pulling movement like a row or a pull-up. And then finally, they're going to involve some form of overhead press. That's a basic 5-exercise compound movement workout, 3 sets of 10. Start very low in weight, and as you get good form and you feel good about it, you can begin to do that progression. But all of those are compound movements. Now, if you find that your triceps are what's keeping you from being stronger when you do your base workout, maybe you want to add some tricep work in there just to strengthen them a little bit more, because you don't want any one body part being the laggard that's keeping you from optimizing the strength in other muscles. So you may do some of that. You may split this up and start doing more of that. And then the final point I want to talk about as far as exercise selection is a term called periodization. When you do the same thing over time, initially, yes, your brain connects with the muscles. It learns how to use more muscle fibers to affect the movement, and your strength gains are pretty good. After that, now we're really into the muscle building. Now we're into the, really focusing on the muscle becoming stronger, not just the neuromuscular connection being firmer, where we're actually now strengthening the muscle. At many points in time, that can stall. That can feel like it's just not going anywhere, and you might feel like you've plateaued. That's where periodization can help. You can set up periodization in any kind of schedule you want. I'm a big fan of either 4 weeks or 8 weeks. I found that after about 4 weeks strength training, that's where they start to see kind of that flattening out. By 8 weeks, most people are flattened out, and so if you change up the exercises, in many cases, you're again spurring more connections for your brain to your muscle fibers, and you're building additional strength in those muscles. So about once every 8 weeks, you're probably going to want to change up your program to incorporate different exercises that basically accomplish some of the same tasks. So an example would be, let's say you started out with a back squat where the bar's on your back, and you're doing that for 8 weeks. You may want to switch it up and for the next 8 weeks do a front squat. This changes the dynamic of the movement. You're at a slightly different angle. And what I've found is for a lot of people, once they learn the front squat and get really good at the front squat, their back squat naturally gets stronger because they have better core positioning and they feel better under the bar. But understanding those progressions and understanding periodization is really, really important if you want to continue to see progress and get stronger after 40. The final thing I want to talk about is about getting help. Weightlifting is, it may feel like a very solo sport because it's just you against the weight, but in reality, it should not necessarily be a solo sport. The first thing I want to preach here is safety. You do not want to be under a weight that you can't control or that you can't lift if that weight's going to come down on you. So exercises like the squat and the bench press, and in some cases, maybe even the overhead press, are things that you just want to be very, very careful with. And having someone there, or at the very least, having a safety rack is really important. I'm going to put a link in the show notes of this podcast where you can go in and see a video that I've done about safety rack and how you can use a safety rack for safety. I used one. I basically did 3 exercises as a part what we talked about: the squat, the bench press, and the overhead press. And in each of those exercises, I used a safety rack to provide safety, so that if I couldn't complete the lift, I could get out from under the bar without it, being on top of me. So, but having someone there to spot you is really, really important if you don't have access to a safety rack. So in most gyms, when you're working out, if you need a spot, ask for a spot, and people will love to come over and help you, as long as it's not something that's too long, too much. But just tap a guy and say, "Hey, do you mind spotting me?" And most people in gyms are going to be more than happy to come over there and help you get that lift done safely. Or you can hire a personal trainer. Now, I want to take just a moment to step away from working with a personal trainer to say there are personal trainers and there are coaches, and it's kind of important to understand who you're hiring if you're going to hire one or the other. A personal trainer is really good about meeting you in the gym at a certain time, giving you a workout, making sure that you're getting good periodization, good exercise selection, again, which was very, very important, that they're timing your rest, they're counting your reps, and they're there to spot you on your lifts. And, in some cases, yes, it's even nice that they're there to help you load and unload machines or weights. But a personal trainer is really that. I mean, they're in the gym giving you, and most personal trainers are not going to be attentive to you or really care too much about what you're doing outside of the hour, 2 hour, 3 hours per week that you spend with them. A coach, on the other hand, is someone who is going to want to spend more time with you. They're going to want to know what you're doing for the rest of the week. They're going to talk to you about nutrition. They're going to talk to you about rest. They're going to talk to you about sleep. They're going to talk to you about a lot of things to make sure that you're doing things outside the gym that will benefit what you're doing in the gym. And then again, the coach, if they're there with you, is counting reps. They're looking at your form. They're giving you cues. So a coach is more than a personal trainer. It's truly a coach that's there to help you win. And so, if you're looking for a coach, you can go to 40plusfitnesspodcast.com and click the link that says Train with Alan. I got a few different ways that you can work with me. And I'm a coach. I'm not a personal trainer anymore. We focus on a lot more than just here's your workout, here's your thing. Most of what I do is custom for you. So if you come in to work out, there will be some base workouts, but in a general sense, we're going to talk. And if we decide you need to make some changes in your nutrition, your sleep, your rest, your stress, or your lifting, or the things you're doing outside of lifting, then we make those changes. Now, I did get a few questions on Facebook. One of them related to training as a runner. And runners are really interesting because a lot of runners don't really want to weight train. And I get it, because if having the best time is what's really important to you, you have to think about your strength versus mass, okay, or power versus mass. So if you actually are lifting and gaining weight, gaining pounds of muscle, which can happen, what you might find is that actually slows your time. So you don't necessarily want to get bigger and put on muscle mass if you're a runner, but lifting can be a good adjunct to your running. And areas where I see that most runners can benefit from strength training is in the core work and the lateral work. So exercises that are not just going. And then most runners need to do more upper body training. They don't get any work on their arms while they're running, and as a result, they don't see. They basically don't have enough muscle mass up there to have the things we're talking about to build strength. But you can work and build strength and be a runner too. It just takes training, again, a little bit smarter. If you're doing long runs, obviously you don't want to do a leg day before a long run. So you have to time your rest and recovery better. Those are some basic aspects there. As far as someone just getting started out, I'd really encourage you to consider hiring a personal trainer or a coach, because if they can show you how to do the exercise properly, you're going to use good form. You're not going to injure yourself. And by all means, if you do ever find yourself that you have an injury, don't try to power through it. The all pain, no gain is actually doesn't work that way. If you hurt yourself, you're out of the game and you're not going to get stronger. So if you're over 40, I strongly encourage you, and you haven't lifted before, I strongly encourage you to get a coach, someone will teach you how to do the exercises properly, someone that will pay attention to your movement patterns and make sure that you're doing the right things in the gym and away from the gym to get strong after 40 and optimize your results in time. If you spend hours in a gym each week, you want to make sure you're getting a benefit for that time. If you're eating extra protein and you're working on your sleep and your health, all those different things, you want to make sure you're getting your results. And so you don't want to be injured. You want to make sure you're doing it right. And you want to make sure there's someone there to kind of push you and hold you accountable. So hiring a good coach is really, really important if you want to get the optimal results. All right, Rachel. I know you're the big runner, but we had had some conversations before all this, and you were asking me about strength training as a runner, and it can be a little bit different. A lot of the things that I would do with just a general client, I wouldn't necessarily do with someone who's doing a lot of running. But I do think it's really important for runners to also lift weights and get stronger, because even though when you're running, you kind of putting extra stress on your legs and your body, and that helps with bone density. It's not nearly as effective at bone density than when you're actually doing heavier weights and adding more load to your body. So I do encourage runners to lift. And I think another big topic that's kind of come up for me in the last few months is obviously the gyms may have reopened in your area, but you just don't feel comfortable going. So you still want to work out from home, and you want to strength train. And for most people, I'd say early on, body weight training is just going to be fine. You can get a good workout with body weight. I can wear your butt out with a body weight workout, but there's going to be a point where, like if you're doing a squat, that you're just not going to get more stronger because you are what you weigh, and you don't necessarily want to put on body weight just so you weigh more, so you squat more. And so there are things we can do. We can hold something while we're doing the squat, and that'll add a little resistance, but you're just going to eventually run into a wall. Want to get a little stronger than that, and there's not a real easy way to do it. So I'm encouraging people, and you'll hear me say this as a gym owner, don't say that, but build a home gym. If you're afraid to go back to the gym, or your gym's just not open because Island Fitness is not open, then I encourage you to go ahead and invest a little bit of money and just have a plan to start picking up some equipment. And in the show notes for this episode, I'll put links to some adjustable dumbbells, to an adjustable bench, and a few other things that you can start using to kind of kit out your gym, your home gym. And some of this, like the adjustable dumbbells, they don't take up a ton of space. They're just kind of bulky and awkward because you're trying to go from a low weight to a higher weight, and you have to use the pens and do the thing. So it's a little blocky. But it works, and it adds that extra resistance. And so instead of saying, okay, I'm doing my body weight work and then I'm done, I would encourage people to get a little stronger than that. And the easiest way to do it, the most cost-effective way to do it, is actually do it at home. Even though it seems like a big investment, you buy the equipment once and you've pretty much got it for life. Whereas a gym membership, you're paying rent on equipment, whether you use it or not. And you're going to have to keep paying that rent for as long as the gym. But if you want to have a gym membership, please, I fully encourage you, have a gym membership. But as it goes, I really think people should start building a home gym because it's something the whole family can use, and everybody needs to get stronger. We all need to get stronger.
Oh, for sure. I'm all in on strength training, and even as a runner, I've been strength training for about 5 years now, and it continues to remain part of my weekly training program. Since we moved from Florida back to Michigan, we've been collecting different pieces of gym equipment over the last, I guess, going on 6 years now. So we now have my first piece of equipment was a hand-me-down elliptical from a friend from the Pea Ridge running club. And then when we moved to Michigan, knowing when it got really snowy, there'd be days I couldn't run. Obviously, we picked up a treadmill. And I got a spin bike the next year, and we've been picking up little hand weights and little pieces of equipment off of Facebook Marketplace throughout the last few years. And just this last summer, we made our big purchase of a gym or an Olympic weight set and a cage so that I can lift safely without being crushed by
Yeah.
the Olympic bar or anything like that. So yeah, it has been an investment, but spread over the last 5 or 6 years. We've just bought on little pieces at a time, which has made it very affordable. And it's been great for me and Mike, and even the kids have used the equipment as well.
Well, that's good. And like I said, in the show notes, I'll put a few links just to make it easy for folks to think about. Okay, what should I prioritize? What equipment would do
Hmm.
me the give me the most bang for the buck? In general, if you go to buy dumbbells, you're going to pay about $1 a pound.
Hmm.
So if you want to start out and you go out and buy a pair of fives, and then you come back a little bit later, and when those aren't enough, you buy a pair of eights, and over time it seems like a lot, but you'll get use out of them, up to a
Hmm.
point. And that's the adjustable ones are a little pricey, but when you look at what you're getting for the dollar, it's well worth it. And having it in your house, having it right there, kind of eliminates some of the excuses that you might have that, oh, look at that snow, I can't go to the
Yeah.
gym. uh,
Hmm.
I've got a little
Yep.
tickle in my throat, I better not go.
Yeah.
Here it's in your house, and it's right there calling to you, and if you're really committed to this, then it's better to have it right there.
For sure. Yeah, we started that same way actually. When I started listening to your podcast about 5 years ago, we had a pair of 5 pound and 8 pound dumbbells. And so when I was listening to your podcast, I would lift weights, do different things. And then when I became accustomed to those, a month or so later, we picked up some tens. And then, we've just every few months you pick up another set, and it's not super expensive, but it does a lot of good for you. So investing in your health is really important.
Yeah, and I accumulated a bunch of equipment, racks and bars and all of that, battle ropes and kettlebells and club bells and all kinds of stuff. And so now I'm actually shipping that down. So probably in about 2 3 more weeks from when you hear this, that equipment will be arriving into Panama, and I'll be loading that into the gym and getting the gym all set up. So it's going to,
Awesome.
my home gym was a little better than the gym I bought down in Panama. So I'm pretty excited about putting new equipment in there. And when we
Wow.
are able to reopen,
Hmm.
it'll be a whole new gym.
That's fantastic. How exciting. So do you have any tips for people starting out? Like, is there any particular movement or activity that you think gives the best bang for buck when
Yeah.
starting a home gym?
I do. I do. The first thing I'll say is pay attention to your movement pattern. Okay. People will do an exercise and it'll hurt. And a lot of times that pain is a signal that you're not moving correctly. Okay. A squat is actually an excellent exercise to build strength in the legs and protect the knees if you do it right.
Hmm.
If you do the squat wrong, then it hurts and it can damage the knee.
Hmm.
So if you're squatting a lot and you're not doing it right, eventually, yes, you're going to wear out your knee. You're going to cause problems with the knee. Um, the first one says is squat, 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 squat. You can start with body weight. Get good form. Pay attention to how your feet are feeling on the ground, and that your knees are tracking out over your toes. Get really good form on your squat before you even decide to put any load on your body at all. In fact, if you need to hold on to something at the beginning to get comfortable with the movement pattern, then do it. If there's something that's keeping you from having a good movement pattern, we need to work on that. That's
Hmm.
corrective exercise. So, a perfect example is this: I have very tight calves, always have, and if I just go try to do a squat, I'm not going to get my feet are not going to dorsiflex. They're not going to flex up the way they need to so that my knees go out in the lines they're supposed to. And as a result, I lean forward, way forward. So I have to take the time to stretch out my calves and get them to relax, to get them to release so that now I can get deeper into the squat and I can do the full squat with good form. Once I can do that with my body weight, then I'm ready to start putting a load on. The
Mhm.
squat is the most functional exercise that we're going to have. You sit down and you get up several times a day, and you want to be able to keep getting up. And one of the things I joke about is I want to be able to wipe my own butt when I'm 105, but I also want to be able to stand up from that toilet without assistance.
Mhm.
And sure, you can have bars and things put in there that you can grasp to pull yourself off that toilet. But wouldn't it just be better if you built strength in your legs and could actually just stand up?
Mhm.
So paying attention to the way you get up when you're sitting down is effectively a squat, and you do that several times per day already. So building some strength there is important. I think people like to build muscles that are pretty, or the ones
Mhm.
that are going to show. So you'll have someone in the gym that's just doing dumbbell curls, going to do the dumbbell curls, get the big arms. There's no function to that at all. The heaviest thing that you pick up to your mouth is a 12-ounce can. You know, there's almost zero reason that you're going to be curling a lot of weight. Now, you might be trying to put maybe a tool chest up on a cabinet or something. So there is a movement there, but that's not using your biceps. That's using your back and your hips to move that weight. So think about movements that you enjoy doing that you need to do,
Mhm.
and then build your training around that. If you're going to be playing tennis, okay, there's going to be a lot of side to side movement. So having good, strong, balanced legs is important to maintain stability while you're hitting the ball. Having a good, strong torso and core is going to allow you to strike the tennis ball harder. um, it's not arm strength. And so many people will sit there and focus on arm strength, and that's not really going to help their tennis.
Mhm.
It feels good. Your arms get a little bigger, a little bit more muscular, but in the long run, it's your chest and your hips and your balance and stability of how your legs are set that give you the ability to strike a ball. If
Mhm.
you're a runner, you tend to run forward. You
Mhm.
may run backwards a little bit here and there, but not much.
Mhm.
And you do almost no lateral movement. So doing lateral movements like side lunges and things like that will help build some strength and stability in the legs, protecting the knees, and
Mhm.
allowing you to run longer and
Mhm.
better. And a stronger person is a better runner.
For sure,
You
for
know,
sure. And I'm all in on the squats as well with the runner's focus. I mean, there could not be a better exercise for a runner. That and lunges always warms my heart, and I do a lot of side lunges myself. A couple years ago, I had an ankle injury, and single leg and double leg squats were part of my physical therapy, as well as forward, backward, and sideways lunges were another one. Calf raises and dips were another one. So again, yeah, going back to body weight movements, it's important for strengthening all those supportive running muscles that don't really get hit when you're out there actually on a run. So yeah, that's great.
so yeah, when I typically put a program together for someone, we're going to have probably a couple leg exercises, a
Hmm.
squat and a slide lunge or something like that. If they're not ready for weight bearing as at a squat, sometimes I'll put them on a leg press machine to get their legs a little bit stronger where
Hmm.
they'll feel comfortable. I love the deadlift, but
Hmm.
most people can't do the deadlift very well. And so
Right.
unless I'm directly coaching someone, I don't recommend the deadlift because
Hmm.
you can hurt yourself if you're not doing it properly, and it's
Hmm.
easy to do it wrong.
Mhm.
It's hard to
Yep,
do it right. But if
yep.
I'm coaching someone directly, we're going to be doing some deadlifts. And then a pushing movement. So typically something like a push up or a bench press, a
Mhm,
pulling movement, which could be both, it could be basically where you're pulling, growing towards your body,
mhm,
or where you're pulling from above, like a lat pull down. And so mixing
mhm,
those up so you're working different back muscles. And then just an overhead press. But you don't have to get really strong with overhead press because the heaviest thing you're going to be pressing over your head is a big jar of pickles or something.
mhm.
And so looking at what you're going to be doing, you don't need to be pressing a ton of weight over your head, unless somewhere in your life you need to do that. And I don't personally have anything heavy that I need to put over my head. Although when we were moving, I did put a lot of cartons, bins. We have plastic bins, and I put a lot of those heavy ones up on the top, which took some work. But again,
Mhm.
it wasn't that heavy. I mean, we're talking 20 pounds. So it's not
Sure.
like I had to be able to press over my head that much. So just having a good rounded full body workout like that, giving yourself the rest, as we spoke about in the podcast episode,
Hmm.
you're gonna get stronger. Your body just will naturally get stronger, and that's what we need. So just full round body. I wouldn't just say just do squats or just do that. You want to do it all. You want to make
Yeah,
sure you're building the strength across your whole body.
for sure. That sounds great. Thanks.
Okay, well, I got a couple things I want to announce.
All right.
One, I'm going to be doing this virtual 5K, 10K. I'm actually going to do the 10K, but you can do it as a 5K or 10K, and it's called the Sloth Running Team, and they benefit Stand Up to Cancer. And so you can go to
Awesome.
40plusfitnesspodcast.com/race. And Rachel, I know this is something that's it's big on your head, on
It
your heart,
is. Hmm.
is dealing with cancer. So this is
For
this is
sure.
going to fund Stand Up to Cancer, and you just go to 40plusfitnesspodcast.com/race, and that'll take you to their sign up page. After you've signed up and you go do it, I'd love to know that you've done it. If you go to to our group on Facebook, 40plusfitnesspodcast.com/group, you could post a picture of yourself with your medal after you complete your 5K or 10K. I'd love to see those pictures. So, and it's a pretty cool little shirt too, I have to say. We have sloths down in Panama, so it's just kind of interesting. That was a sloth race, and I
Perfect.
enjoy that quite a bit. And then there is a holiday summit. I'm not sure exactly what he's going to call it exactly, but I'll be interviewed for this summit along with several other health and fitness experts. So I'd strongly encourage you, if you want to kind of get more of this, but a lot more of this, because summits are the best way I can say it now, because they're virtual, just like a podcast. Is that quite literally you can listen to a ton of interviews that this guy's going to do all in one space. So it's 40plusfitnesspodcast.com/summit will take you there to sign up for that. So go check
Awesome.
that out. So go to 40plusfitnesspodcast.com/summit if you want to hear about the holiday summit, where we're going to be talking about how to get yourself ready for the new year. So kind of getting the right mindset, having the right training plan, having the right nutrition plan, and everything so you can meet your goals for 2021. So if you like that kind of stuff, go to 40plusfitnesspodcast.com/summit.
Perfect.
All right, Rachel. Anything else we need to go over before we cut out?
No, I think that sounds great. I'm looking forward to getting to the gym myself.
Good, good. Well, you guys have a happy and healthy week, okay?
Thank you. You too.
Next time on the 40 Plus Fitness Podcast, we bring back Dr. Jason Fung to discuss his new book, The Cancer Code, a revolutionary new understanding of a medical mystery. Until then, have a happy and healthy week.